He made me wait an hour. He didn't read my resume. He asked me questions that had nothing to do with the job, and then he tried to dig up dirt on people I used to work with. The interview lasted 10 minutes. It took me 3 years to get my revenge. And when I finally did, I didn't raise my voice, I didn't send an angry email, I didn't even confront him. I just made his company disappear from the internet. Permanently. It is how that if you've ever sat across from someone who looked at you like you were beneath them, someone who wasted your time, disrespected you, and made you feel small just because they had a title and you didn't, this story is for you. This is a revenge that took patience, not anger. A revenge that was completely, 100% legal. And it was so satisfying that when it finally happened, the person telling this story said they felt something they called a small frisson of delight. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why. Like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get into it, the setup. Picture this. You've been job hunting for weeks. You've sent out resume after resume into what feels like a black hole. Most companies don't even bother replying, just silence, an automated rejection 2 months later if you're lucky. So when an email finally lands in your inbox with the subject line interview request, your stomach does that little flip. Relief. Hope. Maybe even excitement. That's exactly where our protagonist, let's call him Daniel, found himself a few years back. A small company had reached out. Not a massive corporation, not a big name you'd recognize, but a real opportunity. The kind of role that could actually go somewhere. And the interview was with the CEO himself. That felt like a good sign. Direct access to the top. A founder who cared enough to meet candidates personally. Daniel prepared the way you're supposed to. He researched the company. He rehearsed answers to the classic questions, tell me about yourself, why do you want to work here, what's your biggest weakness? He picked out his best outfit, printed an extra copy of his resume just in case, and showed up 15 minutes early, because that's what you do when you actually want the job. And then he waited. 15 minutes turned into 30. 30 turned into 45. He sat in a sterile little reception area, watching the second hand crawl around a wall clock, feeling that particular kind of anxious boredom where you can't fully relax but you also can't leave. He wondered if he had the wrong time. He wondered if he should say something to the receptionist. He wondered if this was some kind of test. At the 1 hour mark, a man finally emerged from a back office. No apology. No acknowledgement that he'd just made a job candidate sit for 60 minutes like an afterthought. Used a curt nod and a gesture toward his office, as if Daniel should simply be grateful to finally be summoned. The interview from hell. If you've never sat across from someone who has clearly decided you don't matter before you've even said a word, let me paint the picture for you, because the body knows before the mind catches up. There is a tightness that creeps into your shoulders. Your smile starts to feel like something you're holding up with effort, like a mask slipping slightly at the edges. You keep waiting for the moment things turn around. They don't. The CEO sat down, glanced at a piece of paper on his desk, Daniel's resume, for what could not have been more than 3 or 4 seconds, and then set it aside like a napkin. He hadn't read it. Not before the interview, not during it. He didn't know what Daniel had done, where he'd worked, what he'd accomplished. None of it had registered. Instead, he launched into questions that had nothing to do with the job posting. Nothing about skills. Nothing about experience. Random, oddly personal questions that seemed to serve no purpose except to establish some kind of dominance in the room. And then, and this is the part that really should make your skin crawl, he started fishing for information about Daniel's former co-workers. Not references. Not who can vouch for your work ethic. Actual personal details about people who had nothing to do with this interview, people who weren't even in the room to defend themselves or consent to being discussed. Daniel sat there, doing the mental math that so many of us have done in moments like this. Is this normal? Am I overreacting? Should I just push through it because I need a job? That's the trap, isn't it? The way disrespect convinces you that tolerating it is the mature, professional thing to do. 10 minutes in, Daniel made a decision that took more courage than people give it credit for. He stood up, thanked the man for his time, because politeness costs nothing, even when it isn't earned, and walked out. No confrontation. No dramatic speech. Used the quiet, dignified exit of someone who realized he was worth more than being treated like this. But here's the thing about injustice, even when you walk away from it, it doesn't just evaporate. It sits in your chest. It replays at inconvenient moments, while you're brushing your teeth, while you're trying to fall asleep. That hour of waiting. That dismissive glance at his resume. Those invasive questions about people who trusted him. It faced it, quietly, for a long time. Discovering he wasn't alone. Dime passed. Daniel found another job, a better one, with people who actually valued him. Life moved on, the way it does. But every so often, that memory would surface, an old bruise that never fully faded. Then, one day, Daniel discovered Glassdoor. If you've never used it, it's a site where employees and interviewees can anonymously review companies and their leadership. Curious, and maybe a little hopeful for validation, he searched for that company. What he found changed everything. It wasn't just him. Page after page of reviews painted the same picture, a CEO who was, in the words of nearly everyone who had crossed his path, universally disliked. Former employees describing the same volatility, the same disrespect, the same pattern of behavior Daniel had experienced in that 10-minute nightmare of an interview. It wasn't a bad day. It wasn't a misunderstanding. This was simply who this man was, consistently, to everyone. There's a strange kind of relief that comes with discovering you weren't the problem. That the discomfort you felt, the wrongness you sensed in that room, wasn't an overreaction, it was an accurate read of a genuinely toxic person. But relief curdled quickly into something sharper. Anger, this time with evidence behind it. Validation that came with a bitter aftertaste, because it also meant this man had been allowed to treat people this way, over and over, without consequence. The discovery that changed everything. Then Daniel noticed something else. The company had a Wikipedia page. He clicked on it, half expecting nothing, just a dry, factual stub. Instead, he found something almost comical, a page that read less like an encyclopedia entry and more like a marketing brochure. Grand claims. Flattering language. The unmistakable fingerprints of someone who had written glowing things about his own company and slapped them onto what was supposed to be a neutral, third-party source. But here's where it got interesting. Scrolling through the page's edit history, Daniel could see that other Wikipedia editors, volunteers who patrol the site for exactly this kind of self-promotional nonsense, had been fighting back for a while. Bit by bit, they'd stripped away the biased language, the inflated claims, the marketing spin. What remained was a skeleton of a page. Practically nothing. Used the bare statement that the company existed. And sitting at the top of that gutted page was a warning, a notability tag. In plain language, it meant Wikipedia's editors had flagged the page as not meeting the site's standards for inclusion at all. The company wasn't significant enough, wasn't documented enough in independent, reliable sources, to really deserve an entry. The tag was essentially an invitation: improve this page with real evidence of notability, or it might not survive. Daniel sat back in his chair and felt something shift into focus. He didn't want it to survive. The turning point. This is the moment worth sitting with, because it's the moment so many of us dream about but rarely get. Not a screaming match. Not a viral confrontation. Just a quiet, clear-eyed decision: I have the ability to do something about this, and I'm going to use it. Daniel had learned, through his Wikipedia rabbit hole, about something called a proposed deletion, PROD for short. It's a mechanism built into Wikipedia's own rules. Any editor can apply the tag to a page that looks like it doesn't meet the site's standards. If 7 days pass and nobody objects, nobody edits the page, nobody removes the tag, nobody makes a case for why the page deserves to exist, the page is deleted. Automatically. By the platform's own design. This wasn't hacking. This wasn't harassment. This was Daniel picking up a tool that Wikipedia had placed directly in the hands of anyone willing to use it, and pointing it at a page that, by the site's own standards, probably shouldn't have existed in its inflated form in the first place. He applied the tag. The waiting game. And then came the part that might be the most delicious kind of revenge there is, the waiting. Because here's what Daniel understood, sitting there after clicking that button. This wasn't in his hands anymore. He couldn't sabotage anything. He couldn't be accused of anything. All he had done was ask a question that the CEO, a man so consumed with controlling his own narrative that he'd written his own marketing copy into an encyclopedia, would now have to answer without even knowing the question had been asked. Does anyone think this page deserves to survive? For 7 days, that question hung in digital limbo. Anyone could have saved it. The CEO himself, if he happened to check his company's Wikipedia page, could have removed the tag in about 4 seconds and started building a case for the page's notability. A single employee, a single fan, a single passerby with editing privileges, could have stepped in. Daniel checked in periodically, the way you check a pot you know isn't going to boil for a while, just to see if anything had changed. Day 1. Nothing. Day 3. Nothing. Day 5. Still nothing. There's a particular kind of quiet satisfaction in watching a consequence unfold entirely on its own momentum. No confrontation required. No risk. Use the slow, grinding machinery of a system doing exactly what it was designed to do, because nobody cared enough, or was even paying attention enough, to stop it. The POV. 7 days after Daniel applied that tag, the page was deleted. Gone. Not edited, not archived in some easily searchable form, removed. The company that the CEO had proudly, arrogantly built a Wikipedia presence for, the one he'd apparently written himself in language dripping with self-congratulation, simply ceased to exist on one of the most visited websites on Earth. Daniel described the feeling as a small frisson of delight, that little electric shiver of satisfaction you get when something unfair finally balances out. Not a fist pump moment. Not fireworks. Just a quiet, private smile, alone at his computer, knowing that somewhere out there, a man who had made him feel small for 10 humiliating minutes had lost something he clearly, deeply cared about, his carefully curated public image, and he probably didn't even know why. He never found out it was Daniel. There was no confrontation, no reveal, no scene where the CEO realizes who's behind it. And honestly, that's what makes it perfect. This wasn't about being seen or getting credit. It was about balance being restored, quietly, on Daniel's own terms, somewhere, a CEO who once couldn't be bothered to read a resume, who kept a candidate waiting an hour, who tried to pry personal information out of someone about coworkers who weren't even there to consent to it. That same man opened his browser one day, searched for his own company, and found nothing. No page. No marketing brochure dressed up as an encyclopedia entry. No public monument to himself. Used a search result that led nowhere. And he'll probably never know that the reason traces back to 10 minutes he didn't think twice about, years earlier, with a candidate he never even bothered to remember. What makes this story so satisfying isn't just that justice happened, it's how it happened. No shouting. No sabotage. No burning bridges or getting arrested for anything. Daniel simply refused to let disrespect go unanswered, and then he used the truth, paciencia, and a system's own rules to let consequences fall exactly where they belong. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't loud at all. Sometimes it's just quietly closing a door that someone else left open for you. If this story gave you that same little frisson of satisfaction, smash that like button, and let us know in the comments, have you ever gotten quiet, well-earned justice on someone who underestimated you? We want to hear it. And if you want more stories like this one, hit subscribe, because there are plenty more where this came from.